Birds are dropping out of the sky dead. The first bird fell on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting on my porch, sipping coffee and enjoying the crisp autumn air when it happened. It plummeted from the sky like a rock, hitting the pavement with a dull, sickening thud. Startled, I jumped to my feet, nearly spilling my coffee. The bird was small, a sparrow, its wings splayed out at odd angles. There was no apparent injury, no blood, no signs of trauma. It just looked wrong. I poked it with the toe of my shoe, half expecting it to spring to life, but it didn't move. The sparrow was undeniably, completely dead. By the end of the week, it wasn't just one bird. Everywhere I went, I noticed them. Dead birds scattered across sidewalks, lying in the gutters, even collecting in clusters beneath power lines. The news barely mentioned it at first, chalking it up to some localized environmental issue, but the numbers were growing. At first, it was a handful, then dozens. By the following week, it was hundreds. I work as a park ranger in a small town, so I see a lot of wildlife. My job is to ensure the trails are maintained, the wildlife is undisturbed, and the tourists stay out of trouble. Normally, it's peaceful work, but lately, things had been anything but. Dead birds were everywhere in the park. I'd find them on the trails, floating lifeless in the pond, even in the parking lot. I reported it to my supervisor, but he just shrugged. Probably some kind of avian flu, he said. It happens, nature's way of balancing things out. But this didn't feel natural. The first strange thing I noticed was the silence. The park was usually alive with birdsong, the rustle of leaves, and the chatter of squirrels. But now, it was eerily quiet. The birds that weren't dead had vanished, and the usual flurry of activity was gone. Even the other animals seemed on edge. I saw deer skittishly darting into the trees and squirrels acting jittery, their movements frantic and unnatural. And then, there was the smell. It started faintly, a sour, acrid scent that clung to the air. At first, I thought it was a dead animal rotting nearby, but the smell didn't go away. It seemed to seep into everything, growing stronger each day. One afternoon, as I was clearing a fallen tree from the trail, I came across a particularly large cluster of dead birds. There were dozens of them piled together, their bodies stiff and contorted. I crouched down, trying to figure out what had killed them. That's when I noticed something odd. Their eyes were gone. Not pecked out by scavengers, just the sockets were clean, smooth, as if something had removed them surgically. I tried to report my findings to the local wildlife authorities, but they brushed me off. It's probably a natural phenomenon, they said. We were looking into it, but I could tell they didn't believe it was anything serious. That night, I stayed late at the park, determined to figure out what was going on. I set up a trail camera near one of the bird clusters, hoping to catch a predator or scavenger in the act. As the sun set, the park grew unnervingly quiet. The usual sounds of crickets and owls were absent, leaving only the rustle of leaves in the wind. Around midnight, I heard it. A low, humming noise, faint but distinct. It wasn't coming from any direction in particular. It seemed to vibrate through the air, resonating in my chest. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Something darted through the trees, fast and silent. I turned my flashlight toward it, but there was nothing there. The humming grew louder, and then, in the beam of my flashlight, I saw them. More birds, falling from the sky like rain. One by one, they hit the ground with sickening thuds, their wings flapping weakly before they went still. The next morning, I retrieved the trail camera. My hands were shaking as I plugged it into my laptop and pulled up the footage. At first, everything looked normal. The dead birds were visible in the frame, illuminated by the camera's night vision. Then, around midnight, the screen flickered. A strange distortion rippled across the video, followed by the appearance of a faint glowing mist. It hovered over the birds, pulsing with an unnatural light. And then, from the mist, shapes began to emerge. They were tall, thin, and almost translucent, their forms barely visible in the dim light. They moved with an eerie grace, bending over the birds and reaching out with long, spindly fingers. I watched in horror as one of the figures plucked a bird from the pile and raised it to its face. A soft, wet sound followed, and when the figure dropped the bird, its eyes were gone. I didn't sleep that night. I tried to convince myself it was some kind of elaborate hoax, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Whatever those things were, they weren't human. I tried to share the footage with my supervisor, but when I arrived at the office the next morning, he was gone. His desk was cleared out, and no one seemed to know where he had gone. When I had tried to access the park's computer system, my credentials had been revoked. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, things have only gotten worse. The dead birds aren't just in the park anymore. They're everywhere. Downtown, in people's yards, even on the roofs of buildings. And it's not just birds anymore. Yesterday, I found a deer lying dead in the woods, its eyes missing just like the birds. The humming noise follows me now, even when I'm at home. At night, I see the faint glow of the mist outside my window, and I know they're watching me. And I don't know what they want or why they're here, but one thing is clear. This isn't just a natural phenomenon. It's an invasion, and I don't think we can stop it.